Precision engineering in nature? I didn't say it, the evolutionists did, but we're going to check out that precision engineering in this edition of Genesis Week. And welcome to this episode of Genesis Week, the weekly program of creationary commentary on news, views, and events pertaining to the Origins controversy made possible by the supporters of CORE Ottawa, Citizens for Origins Research and Education. Excellence in pirate broadcasting, we answer your questions and question your answers. We continue to bring you the information the anti-creationists don't want you to see or hear, and giving glory to our Creator while doing it. We here at Genesis Week believe God gave you an intelligently designed brain for a reason. Remember, if you get lost in cyberspace, you can just punch in wazulu.com or genesisweek.com and you can find us. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel to get extras like Crevo Rants and full interviews with our guests. I'm your host, Ian Juby. I was overrun by you, our trusty worldwide network of reporters, who sent me links to a fascinating find of mechanical gears in nature. Thanks to all of you, I'd rather get too many links about the same story than to miss a key story, and this was a good one. The study involves a teensy-weensy insect, somewhat like a grasshopper, named Issus coleoptratus. Now, I'm going to call him Izzy for short. Juvenile Izzies are only about 4 millimeters long, but even their small size packs a complexity that sent the researchers into damage control mode as they immediately set off denying any involvement of a designer. The rear legs hinge laterally on either side. And using those legs, that critter jumps at speeds a little over 8 miles an hour. Now, there is so much speed and force involved that if one leg was ever so slightly faster or stronger than the other, the insect would not hop straight, but would veer to the right or to the left. The legs extend so fast that it would not be possible for the insect's brain to monitor the extension of the two legs and to make adjustments as it was launching itself. So I'm going to say it like it is. Our creator, the designer of that little insect, had an engineering trick up his sleeve. A simple trick. Put gears at the joint of the two legs that mesh, thus keeping the legs in perfect synchronization. The teeth of the gears are a measly 20 micrometers long, 20 millionths of a meter. Now, I had some involvement in designing gears, and it's not as straightforward and simple as one would assume. The designer tries to keep the gear teeth meshed at all times to keep down backlash, which is the sloppiness of the gears. Think of it this way. If I hold one gear in place, the amount that I'm able to turn the other gear before the teeth bump into each other is the backlash. The more backlash there is, the less precise the gears are, and the quicker they wear out. Now, as a result, when you actually design the teeth of a gear, the lands at the bottom tend to pinch in and become rounded. The midpoint of the teeth tends to flare out, and the tip tapered or rounded depending on the diameter of the gear. Now, you can just make straight-toothed gears, and they will work, but they will be inaccurate with a lot of backlash and wear out very quickly because of all the free movement. Now take a close-up look at the well-designed teeth on the gears of this insect. The teeth tips and lands are rounded, just like well-engineered gears. You even see that flaring out at the midpoint on the gear teeth. Evolution's pretty smart, huh? Oh, wait, what's that? Evolution doesn't think? Well, such precision machinery, engineering, requires foresight. Does evolution have foresight? Such engineering requires very specific direction by intelligence. Does evolution have very specific direction or intelligence? Well, evidently the researchers believe evolution has all of the above. Gregory Sutton, one of the researchers, gave away his panic in his comments to the Smithsonian Magazine by making the astonishing proclamation, "These gears are not designed. They are evolved, representing high speed and precision machinery evolved for synchronization in the animal world." Really? Is that a fact? Says who? Did you observe this evolution taking place? Did you observe evolution producing, by your own words, precision machinery? Well, of course not. Therefore, Sutton's comments are certainly not scientific in nature. In fact, they are nothing more than wishful thinking. What we do observe is that precision engineering demands an engineer. Now, it's interesting to note that this is not the only place we've seen precision engineering, even involving meshing teeth like gears and cams. Another example comes from a most unusual place, the heart of the crocodile. Now, this also leads to an interesting discussion about the incredible design of the cardiovascular systems. Now, according to the evolution myth, our ancient ancestor was a fish, which evolved into a lungfish, which evolved into an amphibian, which evolved into crocodilians and mammals such as ourselves. But there's a huge problem with that story. And I mean no offense to my evolutionary friends, but that is all that it is, a story. And a story that is just not feasible. Remember, life is dependent upon the cardiovascular system. If one thing goes wrong, it is fatal to the organism. For instance, in humans, if you rupture an aorta, you're dead within seconds. Now watch as we examine the steps required in the evolution of the cardiovascular system. Not only do you have to put holes in the major arteries, you have to produce new arteries, which go to completely new organs. And you have to make all these changes without killing the organism. The fish heart is a simple two-chambered heart. Now, fish can get away with pumping high-pressure blood to their gills because they live in water, which provides back pressure on the fine capillaries of the gills. So the fish heart just takes deoxygenated blood, pumps it to the gills, where it picks up oxygen, then goes to the rest of the body, then back to the heart. Now, if you attempted to pump high-pressure blood into your lungs, you would drown in your own blood. The fish heart is designed for and works well for a fish. Somehow, evolution must now design and build a multi-chambered heart for the amphibians. Frogs have three-chambered hearts. They breathe through both their skin and from their lungs. The returning blood comes in through chambers A and B and comes into the heart through one common valve. The one chamber is the return of oxygen-starved blood, while the other chamber brings back blood which has some oxygen in it, and they are shown here in red and blue. Blue for oxygen-starved blood, red for oxygenated blood. Both of these streams of blood come into the heart through the same valve, but because of what engineers call laminar flow, the blood flows do not mix. These two flows simply get pumped by the heart through another common valve. Now that squiggly valve in the middle, marked C, keeps the two flows separated so the oxygen-starved blood gets directed to the lungs and the skin to pick up oxygen, while the oxygenated blood gets delivered to the body and organs. Notice that evolution must produce not just lungs, but also complicated blood systems. Notice all of the new arteries that evolution must produce. Arteries that would go nowhere if it weren't for new lungs. Arteries going nowhere would kill the organism within seconds. And if the arteries went to lungs that weren't developed yet, the organism doesn't get proper oxygen and it dies. Evolution dies with it. Now we get to humans, birds, and various mammals. We all have a four-chambered heart. This is because we need high-pressure blood to get to all of our organs and muscles far away from the heart. But our lungs can only handle low-pressure blood. The blood vessels in your lungs need to be as thin-walled as possible in order to maximize the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide with the air. But because the vessels are so thin-walled, if the blood pressure was high, they would burst. And so our hearts have two halves, completely separated from each other. A low-pressure side, which pumps blood strictly to the lungs, and a high-pressure side, which takes the blood from the lungs and pumps it at high pressure throughout the rest of the body. But the human body is incredibly designed. During development, the baby obviously doesn't use its lungs, as it gets its oxygen from its mother through the umbilical cord. However, the heart is a muscle, and muscles develop by use. So the developing baby needs to use both sides of the heart during development, or else the heart will never develop properly, and the baby will die upon birth. So our Creator hatched an ingenious plan. During development, both sides of your heart were connected with special valves which allowed both halves of the heart to pump blood together, to run in parallel. Now this happens by a blood vessel connecting the two main arteries leaving the heart, and a special door which connects the two chambers of blood returning to the heart. Now like we saw before in the amphibian heart, some of the blood returning has oxygen, while the other returning blood is oxygen starved. Now again, because of laminar flow, the two blood flows do not mix and get separated out by the open door. The wall separating the two chambers on the back is marked A, and the open door is marked B. The oxygen-starved blood gets directed to the umbilical cord to pick up more oxygen. The oxygenated blood gets directed first to the heart, then to the brain, then to the body. Now during development, the right-hand side of the heart in this picture is actually the high-pressure side, but upon birth, it becomes the low-pressure side. So when you are born, the doctor gives you your first well-deserved spanking, and a few interesting things happen. The heart jumps into action with the high-pressure side coming up to speed. That door that was connecting the chambers, instead of being pushed open, now gets slammed shut. The first step of you being on your own has now been accomplished. So what about that blood vessel connecting the arteries? Well, the arteries are made of a very soft, stretchy material, while that connecting vessel is made of a stiff, muscular material, which has a strange reaction to oxygen. It shrivels up. So when the doctor gives you that spanking, you start to use your lungs for the first time, screaming, crying, carrying on, and letting the world know you're here. Your blood now sees its first real heavy dose of oxygen, and that connecting vessel reacts by shriveling up and closing off. Both sides of your heart are now separated off completely, and thus allowing you to have a low pressure side and a high pressure side of your heart. I have to emphatically agree with King David, who exclaimed, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Now sadly, in this fallen world, if that door on the back of the heart doesn't close, you get what is called a baby with a hole in its heart. Sadly, this often kills the baby. So this is just another example of just how carefully the cardiovascular system is designed, and just how impossible it is for evolution to produce the cardiovascular system one small step at a time. What would happen if evolution produced that door connecting the chambers, but it had it opening in the wrong direction? Or the heart didn't have this elaborate system that allowed both sides of the heart to be used during development? All of these things would prove fatal to the organism and fatal to evolution. The entire system has to work right the first time, or it is fatal to the organism and evolution. Now let's get to our crocodile heart, which has a 4-chambered heart like you and I, but with a unique feature. There is a special valve which actually has teeth that mesh together like gears, not unlike our insect Izzy. This gear mesh valve locks closed if the crocodile wants, cutting off all blood flow to its lungs. Now, when it does this, there is a vessel connecting the arteries leaving the heart so that oxygen-starved and oxygenated blood can mix. Now, why would the crocodile want to cut off all blood flow to its lungs? Well, it does this so it can stay underwater for up to 2 hours. Now, after a short while underwater, all the oxygen in the lungs is consumed, and thus the lungs would actually take away oxygen from the blood. By cutting off blood flow to the lungs, the crocodile can stay underwater for an incredible amount of time. Now kids, don't try staying underwater for 2 hours. The crocodile was designed to do this, not you. The crocodile heart was well designed for the crocodile, complete with a geared valve. Now, there's another place we have seen gears in nature. You recall last week we were discussing the inboard-outboard motor of many a lowly bacteria. This inboard-outboard motor is called a flagellum and is staggeringly complex. A nanoscale protonic motor drives the bacteria's tail, which, because of its structure, takes on a corkscrew shape. Spinning this tail at up to 100,000 RPM propels the bacteria at up to 15 body lengths per second. The motor is incredibly efficient and small. Some 8 million of those motors could fit on the tip of one of your hairs. In a previous show, we mentioned the discovery of a souped-up version of the flagellum in a bacteria which actually had a cluster of tails, which enabled it to swim faster still. But even more stunning was the drivetrain of the tails. And yes, I said drivetrain. The gears Izzy had are indeed amazing. But this particular bacteria has what can best be described as an entire transmission, composed of some 30 gears. Each of the orange gears are driven by one of the bacteria's nanomotors. The gears in the transmission keep all the motors and the tails counter-rotating and synchronized so that the tails do not become tangled with each other. There was a famous theologian who once said, if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. Now, this was one of Darwin's rare moments of good science. He proposed a way with which to falsify his theory. That's good science. Well, we just examined multiple organs and biological systems which cannot evolve one small step at a time. And in fact, they all scream of an intelligent designer. You, as an intelligent human being, can recognize intelligent design when you see it. Even if I show you materials that occur in nature, you can recognize intelligent design. You are an intelligent being who is using your intelligence to recognize the production of intelligent design. Rocks occur in nature, sand occurs in nature, but you would be a fool to deny that someone intelligently arranged those rocks. And so it is very much the same when it comes to the astonishing, intricate complexities of living organisms. These are infinitely more complex than silly rocks assembled to spell words. Life screams of an extremely intelligent designer. Someone whose capabilities are far, far beyond our own. You can see not only the hallmarks of a creator, an intelligent designer, but you can also see many character traits of that creator. His extreme intelligence and capabilities, his attention to detail, his knowledge of chemistry, biology, genetics, programming, engineering, materials science, etc. Our creator truly is omniscient, as we have hardly begun to scratch the surface of his knowledge, trying to understand what the creator has even done when it comes to things like genetics. Now, I mentioned biomimetics, the field of trying to get engineering ideas from living organisms. Why would we do this? Well, we do look to life and the created world for engineering ideas, because whoever made this life is really, really smart and has all kinds of really cool ideas. All of it screams of intelligent design, a creator. Now, who is that creator? How would you know? Well, that creator is none other than Jesus Christ, who not only created a body to sacrifice for you and for me, but he also rose from the dead to show us that he is the author of life. Stick around, we'll be right back after this short break. This show is sponsored in part by Canada's first permanent creation museum in the heart of Alberta's dinosaur beds, the Big Valley Creation Science Museum, bvcsm.com. And by GenesisPark.com, where you can get your own beautiful hardcover copy of the Chronicles of Dinosauria, the history and mystery of dinosaurs and man, now available from New Leaf Publishing. What does the Bible say about aliens? Is there life on other planets? What can science tell us about the possibility of aliens? Ian Juby gives answers to these and many more questions in this fascinating and highly disturbing subject. Looking analytically at the subject, complete with the testimonies of people who claim to have been abducted by aliens. The answers will probably surprise you. In this 1.5-hour lecture, Ian shows that the alleged aliens are a problem and that Jesus is the solution. Order online today at Ian's bookstore. Funny, fast, and furious. Ian's Crevo rants cover a multitude of topics in an easy-to-understand comical way. Complicated subjects that normally make your brain hurt a lot less when Ian explains them, while wearing his anti-government mind-reading equipment. Have questions about carbon-14 dating, natural selection, thermodynamics, or what on earth is he doing there? 3 volumes of rants on DVD. Take your pick for $15 each, plus shipping and handling, or order all 3 as a package and save yourself $10. Order online today at Ian's bookstore. Mail for me? Ah! Yep, that's the one. East Vietnamese jumping spider. The venom is so strong that one bite can kill any child and 95% of adults. The surviving 5% typically slip into a coma for 3 to 6 months, only to wake up with permanent paralysis. Ryan wrote in from London, Ontario. Hi Ian, glad to see your show is back again. I was thinking about bacteria over the summer, and it occurred to me that bacteria is where evolutionary theory both begins and ends. If it was the first form of life, and is still the most prevalent and successful today, then obviously nature got it perfect on the first crack. I'm no expert, but it appears as though there would be no advantage to change in the first place, and in fact there is no life form that has some advantage over bacteria today. Stasis. What do you think? Thanks for writing in, Brian. I ain't no expert either, but I did happen to stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. You hit the nail on the head. In fact, in response to last week's show, multiple skeptics went into full denial mode. As we discussed last week with the hyper-swarming bacteria, the bacteria evolved into the same bacteria. And then when you put those hyperswarming bacteria back into a more normal environment, they evolve back into bacteria. None of this was of any help to evolution whatsoever. The bacteria are able to actually re-engineer themselves, unlike us. They are single-celled organisms and pretty much stuck where they are. So they were created with this capability. At no point did the bacteria engineer themselves into anything other than bacteria, even though they have this incredible capability of changing their own DNA and re-engineering themselves. Well, why didn't they re-engineer themselves into something other than bacteria? And as also I discussed in Crevo Rant number 110, you're absolutely right. If evolution and natural selection were actually true, we should never have evolved past the bacteria. Bacteria have all these survival advantages over us, which we just discussed, as well as having an offspring rate billions of times greater than ours, and they are able to survive far harsher environment hostilities than we are. We are very prone to extinction. Bacteria are able to survive and thrive in incredibly hostile environments. If natural selection were actually true, then the evolutionary tree of life would actually be turned upside down, with the bacteria being the crowning glory of the evolutionary tree of life. Well, that's it for this week's show. I'm your host, Ian Juby, signing off for now. Remember, you can send us your comments, questions, and blackmail notices to us in a number of ways. You can email us, comments@genesisweek.com, or you can tweet us at GenesisWeek, or you can go to genesisweek.com, which is our YouTube channel, find the most recent show, and post a comment there. Or you can post a comment on our Facebook page at facebook.com/GenesisWeekTV. And as we part ways again, let me remind you of those words of warning and comfort from our Creator, the Lord Jesus Christ, who said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but through me." We'll see you on the flip side.
We are a viewer-supported program and need your support to keep this program on the air. Please pray for us, and if you wish to financially support the program, Canadians can make a tax-deductible donation to Core Ottawa, Canada North Post Office Box 72075, Ottawa, Ontario, K2K 2P4. While we cannot offer tax-deductible receipts outside of Canada, donors wishing to financially support the program can do so online at ianjuby.org/donations, and thank you for your support.